What did you see in Gaza that the world still doesn't know?
To what I saw and experienced that many people don't know is that the forced displacement, which is an aspect of the genocide, the intentional spreading of disease. Kushner recently revealed in statements that he's made that this has been in the plan and the design for 2 years now.
When did you realize this wasn't aid?
At face value, it looked like humanitarian aid.
Would you consider the soldiers hired for the food aid distribution, would you consider them mercenaries?
Yeah, I would. When I was hired and I was recruited, I provided no resume or an officer record brief or a DD-214.
Did you ever feel ordered to stay silent?
I did. They wanted to keep me hush-hush.
In the famous story of Amir, they're now saying that that story was a lie and that he's alive and well, and they had an interview with him.
I know, factually, that Amir is dead. Spokesman of the GHF specifically asked him, do you use biometrics on your site for those collecting aid? No, we do not use biometrics. How did you verify that this boy Aboud was Amir? Well, through biometrics.
The IDF trains American police officers and ICE officers in Israel. They do anti-Semitism training, not just physical training, but brainwash training, basically, for them too.
They took us to Sterdot. There's an area where you can get your panoramic view with Gaza in the background, and if you time it just right, there might be a bomb that drops for your photo.
By October 24th, I was just like, how have we accepted this as normal? When I went to Senator John Fetterman's office in my military uniform, he opened the door, waved the Israeli flag in my face, and then slammed the door in my face.
Israel's made direct threats to you.
I have been interrogated by a Mossad agent, actually, on an airplane. I did take pictures of him, so if he's listening to this, I have pictures of you.
Charlie Kirk won the election for Trump.
Trump, in all senses, is intertwined with this government and the Zionist regime. There's not an ability for Americans to become creative.
The next war that comes will not be pretty.
Have you received any threats or anything from Israel?
I've received a letter from the Ministry of the Interior that I've been banned from Israel. Notes of death threats left in my hotel rooms when I travel.
It's like more difficult to stay alive in this world than to die.
Watching a genocide on your phone and do nothing about it. One day, it'll be at your door.
Welcome to Inside with Sam. I'm your host, Sam Sankar. This is my co-host, Eric Warsaw, and today we have two special guests. Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, retired, and former Captain Josephine Guelbuane.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Great to have you guys here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Give us a little introduction with you, Joe.
Well, my name's Josephine Guelbuane. I am a 17-year Army veteran, a former intelligence officer. I'm here today because I've been advocating against the genocide in Gaza. As an American citizen, I understand that our tax dollars are funding this genocide and our government is complicit in this genocide. And so, I'm here today to continue advocating because they've called for a ceasefire and there really isn't one.
Right. Anthony?
Well, I'm up here from Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's really a pleasure to be in studio with you today. I recently retired from 25 years in the U.S. Army. I was a Special Forces Green Beret. I spent roughly a month and a half in Gaza and Israel with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation as a security contractor and witnessed firsthand the starvation, the genocide that is ongoing, that continues, the famine, the disease, the systematic killing and the planned genocide of the Palestinian people. And what really disturbs me and has motivated me to not only speak out, but to continue to speak out is that the United States is absolutely complicit, handmaiden to what Israel is doing. And it's not unknown, it's known. And those in the United States that have been complicit must be held accountable, as well as Israel.
I want to start by asking you, Anthony, what did you see in Gaza that the world still doesn't know?
So I think what I witnessed, that what I came home and shared with everybody isn't anything new. Palestinians, UN, doctors, others that have seen it have been saying this for such a long time. what I think is unique to what I saw and experienced that many people don't know is that the forced displacement, which is an aspect of the genocide, the intentional spreading of disease, the hepatitis, dysentery, enterovirus, polio, without vaccine, and the purposeful lack of allowing vaccine in is another aspect of the genocide. Most disturbing is the plans that went into the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's existence and the establishment of the what I could call nothing but death traps, the distribution sites, and that these were not just planned in haste to try to get food into Gaza. The way that these were planned had been planned for years, as Kushner recently revealed in statements that he's made, along with Special Envoy Witkoff, that this has been in the plan and the design for 2 years now. How it would be established, where the sites would be. The distribution sites that were established by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, where they are geographically and why they were built there, is nothing more than to plant the flag for colonial real estate building post-genocide. And that's exactly what they're doing. And the world needs to be aware of it because it is evil incarnate.
That's right. When did you realize this wasn't aid? It was darker than that.
Well, when I first went into Gaza for the first time on the 24th of May, I was concerned because of where the sites were actually built. And that's not something you can hide or explain away. The sites were built in the middle of active operational engagement areas, combat zones, and with the intent of displacing the population. I brought these issues up to the leadership, the chain of command within UG Solutions and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And there were things that it seemed that those in charge really didn't have a concept or a grasp on the gravity of what was happening. And at face value, it looked like distribution of food. It looked like humanitarian aid. But beneath that, with the intentional lack of food, no water, providing just enough food to make it look like we're providing something, but wholly inadequate to provide to feed the population. I came to realize it over time while I was in Gaza. I kind of had to put the puzzle pieces together. It wasn't apparently obvious until the puzzle pieces were together. And then when the IDF and Safe Reach Solutions, the higher tier contract of the GHF's mechanism in Gaza, it was clear to me that that we were not operating humanitarian assistance in line with humanitarian values, independence, neutrality, focusing on the need. We were operating as a appendage of the Israeli military in Gaza to assist with displacement and starvation. And once it became clear to me that we were absolutely complicit, hand in hand, aligned with their operations, I couldn't be a part of it anymore. And that's when I left.
Would you consider the soldiers hired for the food aid distribution, would you consider them mercenaries?
Yeah, I would.
How much were they being...
I was, in full transparency, I was a part of that. For regardless of reasons for going, you are an American citizen that is being paid good money.
How much
$1,800 a day.
Wow.
How much?
$1,800 per day U.S. Staying in a luxury hotel, all of your expenses paid, getting not only your base pay, but then a per diem payment every day. It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Regardless of the purposes, whether it's your own drive or because it's your way of life, your income. Some contractors, this is what they do. This is their livelihood. So regardless of the reasons, the fact that you are going to do an operation such as this, non-governmental, not part of the U.S., not part of a nation state, you're a mercenary. And going there, I understood what that meant. My reasons were that no food was going into Gaza. That's a fact. The Palestinians in Gaza were starving. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was the only mechanism that Israel would allow. And I felt that I wanted to go to be part of this effort to feed human beings, to do good. I could care less about the money or the experience or the excitement. I had seen enough of war. 25 years, a quarter century I spent fighting America's wars, 4 wars. I went because I truly felt that the United States was a good faith actor in wanting to provide humanitarian aid to starving, needy people, to include children, mothers and fathers, the vulnerable. There were people dying, and I wanted to help.
What were the recruiting standards for the mercenaries?
Surprisingly, none. When I was hired and I was recruited, I provided no resume or an officer record brief or a DD-214, which is the military record of service. No verification of qualifications that I may have had. No background check. When I got there, we received no training on the weapons that we were issued, to include non-lethal stun grenades and tear gas, which was pretty concerning because none of us had used those before. But then also none of us went through any type of qualification to demonstrate our capacity to handle work of that magnitude. It was what I can only describe, which has been described before by others, as amateur hour.
Did you ever feel ordered to stay silent?
I did. I felt that very early on, the 29th of May, the one incident very particular where UG Solutions personnel shot at unarmed Palestinians with lethal munitions, where it was the UG Solutions leadership's responsibility and problem. It was apparent to me that they wanted to keep me hush-hush. They wanted to take control of any videos or pictures that I had. The day prior to that, on the 28th of May, when Amir was killed at site number 3, the IDF were very concerned about controlling that information to the degree to where that evening they had the trucks that we used to bring the aid in that night they were escorted with IDF forces to pick up the dead bodies to be buried. And it was clear to me that there was greater efforts to cover up the crimes.
In the famous story of Amir, they're now saying that that story was a lie and that he's alive and well, and they had an interview with him.
So they believe it was the 4th of September. GHF came out with a produced showcase, if you will, a story that Amir was still alive and that his name was actually Aboud and that he was alive and well. And none of the pieces, I know factually that Amir is dead. His body has been found outside of site number 3. It was buried in the rubble. I've seen it. I know it to be true. I also know
You've seen Amir.
Yeah. I've seen it. It's
Wasn't there
heartbreaking.
also a complaint from his mother saying that she didn't receive the body for like a
That's right.
long period of time
And
after he passed away?
the video that GHF produced is not the boy Amir. Their claim was that they found Amir on the 23rd of August, but they waited until the 4th of September to tell anybody that he was alive. And then conveniently, he was whisked out of the country with a woman who is not Amir's mother. So they took another child and another woman. By all technicality, they kidnapped a child and moved them out of the country. And now nobody, to include media, to include the State Department, to include USAID, to include anyone within the UN, to include any government entities or myself, nobody's allowed to see this child, where he went, who he is. Awfully suspicious. Breaking Points did an interview with Chapin Fay, the spokesman of the GHF, and specifically asked him, do you use biometrics on your site for those collecting aid? No, we do not use biometrics. How did you verify that this boy Abood was Amir? Well, through biometrics. You just said you don't use biometrics. Well, we did in this one case. Would you share those biometrics with breaking points so that we independently can verify that this boy is who you say he is? Never provided it. And now, GHF is defunct, disbanded, and shut down.
And they don't allow any interviews.
They allow no interviews.
They go to extreme lengths to try to discredit somebody, especially when they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And since then, since the 4th of September, and I would like to note that on the 29th of July, when the GHF came out with their first edition of Let's Smear Mr. Aguilar, they claimed that Amir was alive at a different site. So they've recycled that story. People just need to pay attention. But what I would ask everybody that's listening and who can look into this story is to think, who do you believe? An organization run by the CIA, backed by Mossad, paid for by the Israeli government, paid for with private donors who will not conceal who they are, in an operation that led to the death of thousands, who, what they risk, is going to The Hague. And yet, here I am, on the record, telling the truth, nothing to gain, everything to lose. Who do you believe? That's the question I would ask. A 25-year Green Beret who served his country and fought in war, or the CIA, Mossad, and a biker gang known as the Infidels Motorcycle Club?
Right.
Who would you trust?
Right. You took footage of Amir from your cell phone.
I did.
And you witnessed him walking up to you. Can you explain to us just real quick that whole minute, 2 minutes of him coming up to you, how he kissed your hand, what he told you, what you saw in him? I know you were recently on Tucker Carlson. It was a little emotional for you because you have a son, and it kind of reminded you of your son.
So I shared that story with Tucker. I've shared it with others. I would have felt that many times in sharing that story that it would be easier. It's not. It's harder.
It's definitely harder. Yeah.
Because every time I reflect on it, it's harder because this was a human being. It's a child who, when you think about a child here in America and our children that we raise to grow up, to be happy, to be safe, you can't help but disconnect the two to see your own children. And making it even more difficult, this young boy, Amir, for all intents and purposes, looks like my son. Brown eyes, brown hair, beautiful child. Amir was a kind soul. Imagine 8 years old, barefoot, walking 8, maybe 10 kilometers one way. Your father had been killed in an airstrike. You've been separated from your mother because your neighborhood was blown up and you were evicted. Your mother went one way, you went another. A adopted family, no way to communicate with your mother or to know if you were alive. And when you go to a site to get food, probably eating for the first time in days, when you get there, all that's left are scraps on the ground. This young boy picked up scraps from the ground. Not a meal, not food, scraps. And when he walked up to us, he came from a distance, and as he walked towards us and he put out his hand, vulnerability, peace, thankfulness. He didn't complain. He thanked us. And he kissed our hands, not just mine, but the contractor next to me. And he thanked us and he told us that he was so hungry. And when I placed my hand on his shoulder, I could feel how emaciated he was. His fingernails, the fingernails were dried and cracking, which is indicative that your body's no longer producing keratin and you're dying. Right. He was starving to death. And as he had walked away and I was kind of following the group out of the site, I just thought to myself that this young boy is walking away into the sunrise of that early morning. And I thought to myself, I'll never forget you. We can't forget these children. We can't forget Palestinians that are fighting for their survival, that are being killed every day. And yet they wake up and they survive. So I'll never forget that young boy. and he was killed at site number 3 by the IDF, much like hundreds, if not thousands, of other children and unarmed combatants. And that's the thing to remember in this, is that all of these civilians that came to these sites to get food were unarmed, not violent, not threatening in any way. They were killed for doing it. And the United States is involved. And it's not in line with American values.
For you, was that the moment that said, I can't be a part of this anymore? Was Amir the moment, or was it something a different...
Amir's situation hurt. However, in that situation, our responsibility on the sites, within the walls of the sites, that was, the shooting was by the IDF. And having talked with the IDF, again, this was all new to me. This was the second day of distribution. I had never worked hand in hand with the IDF reserve forces before. I had worked with IDF tiered units in other missions, not the reserve line and, line units. And, we'll investigate it. We'll look into it. Under the premise of, well, they're the most moral army in the world. Became clear to me from that moment and forward that they are not the most moral army in the world. They aren't even the most moral army in Gaza.
The IDF soldiers, how would you describe their character and their general personality? And I've also seen somewhere where more than half of them are straight out of high school because of their compulsory recruiting.
Because of the compulsory service and the lack of active recruiting for units to hold land in the south. Up north in the Golani Brigade and the Vampire Empire, the battalion that killed, that is just taken responsibility for killing so many people in Gaza. They were up north. In the south, to hold land, were the conscripts, the reserves, very young, inexperienced, no training provided to them. Basically, here's a gun, here's a tank, go into Gaza. Unprofessional, untrained. What made it worse was that many of them were Americans. Many of them in the reserve components of the 423rd and the 422nd Reserve Brigades in the south that were holding land. Again, up north, fighting in Gaza City, and in the clearing operations, you had the Golani Brigade detached from operations in the Golan Heights for the clearance of Gaza City. The Vampire Empire, that's the nickname of this battalion of the 505th that killed Hind Rajab, same unit. The units in the south, reservists, that had quite a few, many actually, Americans. On the 24th of May, when I was on site number 1, there was a IDF patrol that was sitting outside of the berm near one of the lookout or the guard towers on the site. And they were sitting there in the shade, and I was sitting there in the tower, and I was kind of looking out, and I saw them down there, and they looked up at me and they said, "Oh, are you one of the Americans here with the aid?" I said, "Yeah, we'll be operating soon. I'm just here, checking out the site." And the guy, his English was perfect, and he was like, "Oh, how does it feel to be here feeding our enemies?" And I was like, "Well, we're feeding the unarmed population. We're feeding the civilians." And he was like, "They're all our enemy." And I was like, "Your English is like you little touches of a Boston accent." He's like, "Yeah, I'm from Boston. I came here to join the IDF to fight. I'm Jewish." And I was like, "Okay." And he was not the only one and not the first or the last that I met American citizens fighting in the IDF, on the front lines, in the staff, translators, because many of them speak Hebrew, write and speak. So, yeah, there's a lot of Americans fighting in the IDF on the front lines in Gaza.
Wow. Do they have I don't know if it's just perception, like looking at articles and stuff like that. Do they have a lot of females soldiers in combat roles?
They do in various roles throughout what I would call the FLOT, the forward line of troops. So in war, in combat, where forces are engaged or you have a security area, you have the forward line of troops. So perhaps not engaged in direct combat units like your infantry units on the front lines or forward of the front lines, but definitely in security positions along the forward line of troops and at checkpoints. I would say that the predominant population of IDF soldiers at checkpoints and in the security lines were female. Many of them very young.
Hind Rajab was 5 years old, right? Is that right?
Hind Rajab was 5 years old, and she was murdered, killed with her family in a vehicle in Jabalia by the IDF. 350 bullets fired into her vehicle. And she was cold-blooded, murdered, and left to die. And the IDF lied about it until there was unequivocal proof. But that unit that killed her was this unit that I referred to as the Vampire Empire. That's their nickname. That's what they call themselves. Right. They're operating in Gaza City now. They're part of the unit that pulled back to what's now the Yellow Line.
Right.
That's getting so much publicity because IDF soldiers not only shoot at, but shoot well in front of this new Yellow Line. Same unit.
Who is Sean Glass?
Sean Glass? Is he one of the IDF I don't recall the name.
He's the commander of the Vampire that
you know
Sean Glass.
Sean Glass that killed Hind Rajab?
He ordered
the kill?
I'm familiar with interviews that have been done with him. I didn't realize his first name was Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's had interviews before too, and his recollection of what had happened. And what's disturbing about what happens with the IDF when they commit a war crime is that their first approach to it is lying. Their second approach is denying. Lie, deny, counter-accuse. Oh, we didn't do it, Hamas did.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's unequivocal that they did it, it's, oh, we didn't mean to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We see this pattern over and over again.
Yeah.
It was an
accident.
They
learned to do it that way. That's
they learned
the best
to do
way
it that way.
Offset everything. There's like
lie,
phases.
deny, counter-accuse, and then apologize.
Huh. Yeah.
Sean Glass was a U.S. commander?
I believe so.
He's
He was a U.S. He's an American.
He's an American.
He is a U.S. citizen.
He's not a commander in the U.S. military.
He's not. Okay.
No, he's not in the U.S. military.
In the IDF.
Okay. So he's in the IDF, but
he's an American citizen.
He's an American citizen, but in the IDF, not in the
right.
U.S. military.
And he was I don't believe he was the commander of the 505 Battalion. I think he was the commander of that tank company.
Yes.
Specifically.
I believe he was a major.
Yeah. His face is all over social media right now.
Good.
And then I was mistaken with the American Israeli dual citizen sniper that shot the young child. Rob. His last name's R-A-B-B, R-A-A-B. Anyway, this individual, another American citizen, dual citizen, who has come back to the United States since and has bragged about killing a child who went out to pick up his dead brother who had been shot by this sniper, Daniel Raab.
Yeah.
Who then, he shot him. Daniel Raab.
Not a U.S. military, just IDF.
I don't know his military background. I know that he wasn't, as a member of the IDF, he wasn't still in the U.S. military. I don't know his U.S. military background. I do know that he is a dual citizen of the U.S. and Israel, and that he was in the IDF as a sniper. There are some in the IDF that served in the U.S. military.
But you weren't in the IDF. You just were in the U.S. military, going there for aid, right?
Me?
That's what you were.
Yes, I was in no way associated, assigned into the IDF. I was in the military.
To be clear,
right.
The UG Solutions contract had nothing to do with the U.S. military.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
private.
Yes.
Okay.
Private military.
It was all private military.
All retired
contract.
Okay.
All the people that are a part of the GHF, none of these people were active military. They were all either retired or
I got you.
Did a contract or...
That's also a way to use soldiers and have plausible deniability.
Bingo.
So they could have the ability to go do things that they want done but don't want to take the bad reputation for.
Exactly.
Yeah. When we went into Israel to do work in Gaza, we entered Israel on a tourist visa. We maintained our status as a tourist visa, And we were further instructed in our tourist visa application. I still have copies of it. I kept it. To specifically not mention that we would be there working for GHF, UG Solutions, or Safe Reach Solutions. That we would be there as a resident expert. What that means, I don't know. But we could not affiliate ourselves with UGS, SRS, or GHF.
Wow.
And we were there under a tourist visa.
Wow. I have a question on top of that then. The IDF trains American police officers and ICE officers in Israel?
So there's a couple of programs when the United States shared with the military apparatus, not just the defense forces, but also the gendarmerie. So when you see the West Bank, when they say the IDF in like the West Bank or other occupied territories, not Gaza, they wear a different uniform. It's gray. It's got a big patch, almost looks like a police patch. That's their paramilitary police or gendarmerie. They train with U.S. ICE, with U.S. Homeland Security. NYPD. And that's what's called through a SME program, subject matter exchange, where our police, etc., train with them. Now, there's another program, and this is where the Leahy vetting is so critical that it's obvious we're just overlooking laws, is that it's called Wales Initiative funded events in theater. So that part of the world is U.S. Central Command. The U.S. has state guard identified states that partner with different countries. Israel's partner is Illinois. So these National Guard soldiers that will soon be in or are in Chicago, Illinois National Guard, have trained with and train with Israel habitually for years. So when you look at all of these pieces of who do we have operating on the streets of Portland and the streets of New York and in D.C. and who's going into Chicago, all components and elements that have trained hand in hand with the IDF or the Israeli Ministry of the Interior Gendarmerie paramilitary police.
That's absolutely amazing. I also
That's
heard
not a coincidence.
They do anti-Semitism training, not just physical training, but brainwash training basically for them too.
When we entered Israel, they took us on the Haspra tour. They took us to Kibbutz Be'eri. They took us to the Nova Film Festival site. And they also took us to Sderot, which is the overlook just outside of northern Gaza City in Beit Hanun. It's on the Israeli side of the border, right, that overlooks all of Gaza City. Mm-hmm. They've turned that into a spectacle. It's a picnic site.
Really?
You can go up there. There's vending machines. There's an area to park. There's an area where you can get your panoramic view with Gaza in the background. And if you time it just right, there might be a bomb that drops for your photo. And they have the binoculars that you can put money into. You can put change into it.
It's
and
an
look
observation deck.
An observation deck, like the Empire State Building.
It's a genocide observation.
It's a genocide observation deck, and it exists. It's real.
I cannot believe
it.
That's wild.
A good friend of mine, Matthew Ho, actually went.
It's there
to it in person because he couldn't believe it, and he went and saw for himself.
When members of our Congress go on their Israeli appreciation tour, they take them there.
That's wild.
They have high school field trips there from the children in Israel, like grade school field trips. They'll take them there to go and see what's happening in Gaza.
Wow. That's
Imagine, if you will, of taking a tour and going to central Germany now and going to the concentration camps and like walking through the showers and pretending you're a Jew. Why is it okay? Why is this acceptable?
Imagine there's an observation point outside of Auschwitz with the people still inside. Mm-hmm. It's equivalent to having observation points of going watch people the Jewish people inside of these concentration camps. That's what they are doing to the Palestinian people.
Observation decks on an ongoing genocide. That is extremely wild. That is wild.
There is a sports bar in Ashkelon. Ashkelon is a beach town south of Tel Aviv, just on the northern border of Gaza. There's a beach resort there, and there's a sports bar. where when you go into the sports bar, much like a sports bar here, watch the game, watch MMA, you can do that there. But there's screens that are also up that are live feed fed to the cameras in Gaza City, where you can watch bombing and you can watch starving Palestinians walking around. And you can sit there in this beach resort with your mixed drink, food, and as you're watching a Major League Soccer game, you can also watch bombs being dropped on people and killing them. American bombs.
That's insane.
That's
That's
insane.
unreal.
They do
That
it.
is unreal.
You could get a flight to Tel Aviv, and by tomorrow night, you could be sitting in that sports bar watching the ceasefire get broken in Gaza City.
We were just talking about that before. It took us thousands of years to be civilized. And we're literally witnessing this crumble before our eyes. Civilization.
Before
Thousands
our
of
eyes.
years.
On our phones, we've advanced in technology and at the same time have gone backwards in civilization.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Joe, I got to ask you a few questions. Switch it up to you now. What brought you into advocating for Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a short answer, but to give a short answer, I had been following international media accounts on my Facebook. At the time, I didn't have TikTok and I really didn't use Instagram. And after October 7th happened, of course, there's this initial shock of, you know, all this propaganda that we're receiving here in America by Western media, by our leaders. And so you do have this sort of initial shock of what has just occurred. And as someone who had no idea about anything that had really been going on there between the Palestinians and Israel, of course, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to these families, to these people. And then as the weeks went on and I'm watching the response of Israel into Gaza, because I anticipated there would be a heavy response, you know, or at least some sort of urban operations, you know, immediately to remove these, you know, high-ranking commanders or decision makers of Hamas. I anticipated those types of things would happen. But as the weeks were passing, what I was watching from international media outlets that that Western media wasn't showing us and that our leaders weren't talking about was the bombing of entire apartment complexes filled with women and children. And I'm watching these videos, you know, every day, all day of, you know, massacred children.
Right.
And by October 24th, I was just like, how have we accepted this as normal? And I said, well, surely the issue is, you know, they don't know, that our leaders don't know. I just kept thinking at this point in my mind that surely it's just because our leaders don't know the truth. And the only reason I knew the truth is because I was following international media outlets and I was watching the actual footage of what was happening in Gaza. And so I was like, oh, I know this because I had this like weird, you know, access to actual footage that's not being shown here. And so time passed and, you know, Aaron Bushnell self-immolated a few months later. And that really, you know, pushed me to doing something because my soul just could not handle what I was seeing at this point for months. I was going into a really dark place mentally. I was, you know, processing my own service in the military, 17 years. I was thinking about things I had participated in, you know, as an intelligence officer indirectly. I was never on the front lines. But, you know, I was just, all these things were going in my head about the reality of what was occurring in Gaza and the support that my country was providing to Israel to do this. And after Aaron Bushnell self-immolated, I knew that I had to move into more of an active role, and I had to accept the consequences of losing everything, to include my life. Because that is what you're going up against when you go against the Zionists and when you go against Jewish supremacy. You're going to a place where you could potentially be assassinated. And once I got to a place where I accepted that that could happen to me, I decided to speak out, and I started with my Congress. And for months, I went to Congress. I went to the Capitol. I went and met with these leaders, met with the staff, tried telling them the truth about what I was witnessing, not even necessarily the historical context of, you know, what has been happening for 77 years inside of Palestine, but just what was happening now, to me, was enough for them to move into action. And I wasn't getting anywhere. And it was when I went to Senator John Fetterman's office in my military uniform, my dress blues, and he walked out and waved an Israeli flag in my face. In uniform, and then slammed the door in my face. He opened the door, waved the Israeli flag in my face, and then slammed the door in my face. That was when I knew that our politicians, like, this was much deeper than anything that I could have ever imagined, and that there was the Zionists and the Israeli government had infiltrated inside of our government. And, you know, that opened the door to AIPAC and to lobby groups and to blackmail that they have on our politicians and Christian Zionists. You know, it's a lot of information to digest. And unless you're doing this every day, it's almost impossible to keep up with how complex the situation is. But if just keeping it on the surface level is that I'm here because children should not be bombed. Children should not be slaughtered. Right. I don't care where they are on this planet. Right. And I'm not saying that men and women and elderly should either, because they shouldn't be either. But if we can't even as a society agree that we cannot mass slaughter our children, where are we as a planet and a species?
Israel's made direct threats to you, and have they paid you some visits?
Well, I have been interrogated by a Mossad agent, actually, on an airplane. I was taking a flight to New York City, and they were able to move my seat from economy class to first class and put me sitting next to the agent. And as soon as I walked up, I had an aerosol backpack. That's what I was using to fly with. As soon as I walked up to put my bag in my, in the overhead bin, which I was like, why am I in first class? Like, I thought of it, and then I was like, oh, well, maybe, they ran out of seats. So I'm not even on high alert, really. I'm just, moseying to my seat. And then I go to put my bag in the overhead bin, and he says to me, oh, you were in the military? I'm like, oh, yeah, I was in the military. And I put my bag up, and he has to get out in order for me to get the window seat. And he says, what was your job? A medic? And I said, yeah, that was one of my jobs, actually. He said, and then you became an intelligence officer? And I was like, oh, I knew, this is what this is going to be. This is going to be some sort of interrogation. So we sat down, and from the flight, I believe it was from Charlotte was my connection, from Charlotte to New York, he pretty much interrogated me the whole time about my advocacy for Palestine and, my thoughts on Israel and where I stood and so forth.
Soft-pressed intimidation.
Absolutely.
Jesus.
That's exactly what it is.
And I did take pictures of him, so if he's listening to this, I have pictures of you.
Good.
All right, send me the pictures. We'll upload them on the channel. It's crazy. I can't believe it. It's just they'll go to the extent. You know, they'll do the extra mile just to wash brains and control everything.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think we have
that.
a layer of protection to a degree as former military, and especially, you know, and I'm sure he had a high level clearance. We do have some layer of protection given our background, and so a lot of their threats are empty threats. And at this point, if something were to happen to us, it would be like undoubtedly them. And so in a way that keeps us safe, you know? So, but at the end of the day, I think we've both decided that we were willing to give our life to defend this country, and we're still willing to do that now.
Do you think this country would defend you in return for Israel, against Israel?
Well, I think that the people of this country would.
The people, yes.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
I think that
when I say America, I'm talking about
the people.
Not the people. I'm talking about
the
more
government.
like the government.
I don't know. I don't think the government. I think the government would cover up
for
for
That's
Israel,
what
but I
say.
think that the American people would know.
They would know.
Well, I got a question on top of that.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk. Do you think Israel had something to do
I was
with
going to
it?
say about Charlie Kirk. I was just going to say.
Yeah, you know, when Charlie Kirk was first assassinated, I was observing how the government was going to respond to this, how Israel was going to respond to this. And then, of course, I was watching, you know, Candace Owens and, you know, other influencers presenting evidence. I had also knew that Tucker Carlson was invited onto, you know, Turning Point USA and Dave Smith. And so I could see him starting to slowly change his stance and unwavering support towards Israel. I think he knew that what was going on in Gaza was wrong. And, you know, I can't say for certain if they were involved, but I would say that all the factors that I'm looking at, I would say that they definitely are involved, because Charlie Kirk had so much influence over the conservative side, over the Republican base, that this would have been the nail in the coffin for Israeli support from America, because they've already lost their support from the Democrats. And to be fair, they've lost their support from the conservative base, the youth. You know, I say youth, I mean, you know, young adults. They know, especially people on social media, everyone knows they're losing support. We just watched J.D. Vance at this Turning Point USA event where he gets questioned by, you know, younger conservative people, and they're all asking about Israel. Their antennas are up. They see what's going on. Both Democrats and Republicans in America do not want to support Israel anymore. We no longer think Israel is our ally, and it is only a matter of time before our leaders and politicians either have to listen to what we're saying or they're going to get voted out.
And with Charlie Kirk, it doesn't seem, as of yet, anything direct with Israel, any connections, but there's so many
Indicators.
Indirect connections that there's just way too many coincidences that it's not just the Israeli fingerprints all over, it's their whole palm print is on this too. And I've noticed that too. And Charlie Kirk had a lot of influence, especially among Christian Zios. And he was turning.
Yes, he was.
Stopped taking money. And then it would have been, instead of Christian Zios, it would have been Christian anti-Zios. So, I mean, I think that was a big key piece.
Yep.
Anthony Aguilar, same question. Charlie Kirk, do you believe that Israel may have had something to do with it?
I firmly believe that they did. And I took it from a different approach. Prior to September 10th, I didn't know the name Charlie Kirk. Didn't know who he was. Didn't follow him.
Neither did I.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
On September 10th, I was in Congress. I was in Maxine Dexter's office with Doctors Against Genocide. And as we came out of the meeting, some of the staffers were pretty distraught. There was this conversation going on that Charlie Kirk had been shot. I thought maybe that was a congressman or a House of Representatives. I was like, who's that? And then when I was seeing who it was, I was like, oh, I didn't know who he was. In the days coming, just looking at it, I think, the discussion surrounding how he died, was it a trained sniper? Was it this? I spent 25 years in the Army, and I am not a ballistics expert. I'm not going to, commentate on that aspect of it. But what I do know is that Charlie Kirk had begun to question things, like many of us are. When it becomes so obvious, you'd be an idiot to not question it. Regardless of how much you believe it to be true, it still raises questions. And I don't think, we all know that he was on the verge of asking those hard questions and coming to a conclusion that he was going to be on a side. And everybody knows that he was very influential, not only amongst the MAGA, but the youth, which, for all intents and purposes, the over 18 to 24 age group won the election for Trump. Mm-hmm. Charlie Kirk won the election for Trump. When you look at that, I think that Israel's involvement, one, quiet him, send a message, but two, to send a message directly to Donald Trump. That if you look in the days prior to Charlie's death, the president too had started to say things that were against his master Netanyahu's narrative. Oh, looks like there's some starvation going on in there. Completely against Netanyahu's narrative for years. Things look pretty bad. And President Trump started to say these things. You've noticed since then, he's been mum. Oh, things are great. Bibi's doing everything right. Why? Who would you kill that's closest to Trump than his own children? Charlie Kirk. And it sent a message. It was done outside, in broad daylight, in the middle of a crowd, on national TV, no hiding it, and it was sloppy. So sloppy to the point where Israel is almost as if, yeah, look at that. And what are you going to do about it? And here we are as Americans, we're doing nothing about it.
Doing nothing about it.
And what I would say to Donald Trump, if he's watching, hopefully he does.
Yeah.
Hopefully he watches the show.
Yeah.
Is that trust your country and trust your people.
Yeah.
Trust your patriots.
Yeah.
The Israeli Defense Force is not the best army in the world. The United States Army and the United States military is the best in the world.
100%.
Trust us. That's what I would say.
MAGA or MEGA?
What make
MEGA.
What would MEGA mean? Make Israel great again?
Israel great again?
Yeah.
Or make America great again?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody,
I had to throw that in.
Yeah, he's not. And for everybody that voted for Donald Trump on the premise of make America great, put America first, right?
Right.
This is not that.
No, not at all.
Shutting down the government for 31 days, 33 days come Monday, quickly running up to be the longest in history, only to be beaten by the first time Donald Trump shut down the government in his first term, where he broke the record. He's going to break his own record. How's that America first? Wake up, America. Like, what are we doing? This is not the America. This is not the American people that I grew up defending, that I grew up believing in. It's not. I don't know what this grip is on us, but we got to wake up.
Definitely have to wake up. Joe? MEGA? MAGA?
Yeah, I mean...
What do you think? What do you got to say about that?
Honestly, I think we're past the stage of awareness from both Republicans and Democrats. I think we've reached that stage where the majority of the population is aware of the level of corruption that exists inside of our government from both parties. They're aware of the genocide going on in Gaza and that we're funding it. I think where we're sort of transitioning now from awareness is to what do we do about it? And that's the part that's so difficult, because we have created a solid foundation of organizations inside of America that have been advocating against this genocide. But now that we have more right-wing Republicans and conservatives coming to that awakening point, especially after Charlie Kirk's assassination, there's not really a place for them to fit inside of what was so far built. And a big reason for that is because there are a lot of liberals inside of this movement that gatekeep people from coming into the movement that don't align with them on everything. So, for example, if you're not pro-choice LGBTQ plus, trans rights, you know, you have to like pro-immigration. If you're not pro all of these things, a lot of liberals and especially white people, this isn't even Palestinians, this is mostly white liberals, right, will stop you from being able to enter into the movement. And so what that means is that the conservative side, who has core values of pro-life and, you know, traditional family values, secular family, I guess you can say, values, will have to create their own foundation. And what that does, though, is keeps us still divided. And I think it's the responsibility and duty of people who have built this first foundation to stop the genocide in Gaza to be more open-minded, to let people come to the line, to fight for this country and fight against this corruption, despite the fact that I may be pro-life and you're pro-choice. That should not hinder us from being able to fight together for something that is much, much deeper than that. You know, and I think that's sort of the transition where we are at as a country, as a movement of people who want a revolution, who want this corruption to end, who envision this country to be great, who envision this country to be a leading power that represents humanity in its principled values, the things we always talked about. I mean, that's a reachable goal for us as human beings and as a country, but it's going to take work and it's going to take action. And we need that from both the left and the right in order to do it. And both parties have to realize that in order for us to make any headway.
That's well put. You know, Donald Trump, you mentioned something, Tony, about Donald Trump. I got to tell you, I thought he was going to be much tougher, you know, as a leader. I mean, we're talking about a man who survived the Manhattan, building buildings, you know, for himself in the midst of having, you know, Italian mob. And he probably went through all types of threats from the mob, you know, buying steel from them or not hiring them for construction or whatever the case may be, what he went through as far as, you know, building his empire in Manhattan in the era of the whole, you know, Italian mob, you know, the mafia. And you get like the you know, the Israelites are just, they have him wrapped around his finger. How do you see that? Like, how do you see how Israel is literally wrapping this guy around his finger?
Well,
like,
just like for clarification, the Israelites is not Israel. And as you know, Tony and I are both Catholic. And so when we talk about the Israelites that are talked about in the Bible, there is a clear distinction between this prophecy about the Israelites and the government of Israel and white Europeans settling into the Holy Land. And so when we say this, like the Israelites in the Bible are actually the Palestinian people who have been there for thousands of years, not the white European from Ukraine or Poland or America.
The Ashkenazi.
Right, or Russia or any, like fill in the blank, right? Like Ethiopians, like the Israelites are the people who were indigenous to that land that lived there for thousands of years. And those are not the people who have Trump wrapped around his finger. It's these like settler colonial white Europeans that have settled into the land of the actual Israelites that have either blackmailed him or cut deals with him financially. I mean, we go back to greed, right? Greed is always like a big factor in decisions. So Trump, in all senses, is intertwined with this government and the Zionist regime and the Rothschilds and the Vanderbilts and, you know, the 13 rich families that control the world, basically. Right.
Tony, what's your take on this?
Well, I think that if Donald Trump did all of the things that he ran on to get elected, strength, America first, all that tough talk, we'd be in a much different place as a nation. We wouldn't have a government shut down for 33 days. We wouldn't have a foreign government leading us around like dogs on a leash. We wouldn't have, you know, where I really don't think it's in Trump's personal or best interests to start war in the global south, it's not good for business. Unfortunately, our president is surrounded by a cabinet of buffoons. Whenever I see our cabinet at work, Pentagon Pete, Little Marco, all of his other cabinet buffoons, I think of the movie Idiocracy, where they try to water crops with Gatorade, and they all got a position based on their closeness to President Camacho in the movie. And it's sad because our country can do so much better. And I think that Donald Trump as a president is worried because he has a cabinet and a staff that, one, he cannot trust, that he knows is incompetent, and he has to go it alone. While he's also going it alone, there are credible threats against him, I do believe, from other entities, just like the mob analogy. Mm-hmm. I think that there's those out there that are holding something over him. I don't want to go into it's the Epstein files or whatever, but I think it's pretty darn interesting that after years and years and years of denial, that just yesterday, the king stripped Prince Andrew of his title. Who just saw the Epstein files last week? The king. And for years, he wouldn't strip his own brother of his title of prince and kick him out of the palace. But he did yesterday. Why? Wonder what's in there. Must be pretty bad.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, for real, I can't help but notice that a lot of Trump's cabinet in the White House, especially Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, these were people that were highly, highly anti-Trump.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I thought that
all of them to the name
were picked for him, and he didn't pick them himself, and they're kind of to have distrust and kind of box him in, because his first picks were Thomas Massey, Gates, people who were anti-Israel, and I was like, I don't think they wanted them in there, so they picked these other people instead that were not only pro-Israel but also anti-Trump. So
Trump in his prime put all of them in their place. Little Marco,
DeSantis,
Santa Claus, whatever he called him, all of them.
Yeah.
And then as he got closer to the next term and he needed the election, he realized that he needed allies. Some of those allies are now the ones that he's put in there, like the unwanted prince in a kingdom.
Stephen Miller.
Take this prince or this princess to unite our houses, and you end up with a little Marco. I don't think he has any experience in diplomacy. He's a horrible Secretary of State. Pete Hegseth? I wouldn't put Pete Hegseth on a bus without telling the bus driver where to drop him off. He's not a good secretary. He's not even a good human being. So the cabinet that surround Trump, I think he's worried because he can't fire everybody. We know he has no problem firing people. But if he started, he'd have to fire them all.
Trump 1.0 is different than Trump 2.0 for sure.
Different man.
Oh, yeah.
It really does seem like a different White House.
It's sad.
Person. It is.
Yeah, it almost
different.
looks like a level of desperation that's happening inside of our country right now. And I think it's because there's this idea that we have to invade other countries and steal their resources. Like I just saw a speech by, I think she was a three-star general, and she's talking about the lithium and the oil and inside of, Latin America in the triangle. And that it's a matter of national security that we have, these rare minerals in Argentina and Bolivia and it's just this overall idea that in order for us to be prosperous as a country, that we have to do those types of things where we invade for resources. When the reality is, if they were truly taking care of us so that most Americans are not living day to day struggling to survive, they probably could be really creative in creating ways that could keep this economy going in a life cycle and have these diplomatic relationships with these countries where we're producing something that we can trade in order for us to get the things that they have. We could have just such a good relationship back and forth. But it's like there's this level of fear and desperation, even inside of our leaders, that in order for us to be the greatest world power, the only thing we have to give is producing weapons that will, piece by strength, people into submission and listening to us. And that's not like sustainable. We're a 250-year-old empire that is already falling. We're going to, and look at Israel, a 77-year empire that is falling. Those types of behaviors by an empire are not sustainable, and the majority of people are always going to rise against it. It just takes time, and that's what I said. We're transitioning into the awareness part of what, is happening here into the action part.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. Oppressors don't last for long, that's for sure.
No.
And for real, our economy is so big that we could do positive things to really have the most amount of benefit from somebody else's resources for something that's mutually beneficial. You don't need to do it in the evil way that they do.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're so big and powerful that, they would want to do it anyway if we offered them something small in return.
And we have amazing people here in America that, given if they were living in different circumstances, some of these people are so smart and creative. They can create things that could be put to use by our planet, across this world. Technology, AI. These are things that we could use for the we could use for the better of our planet, and not to create weapon systems and digital IDs. We could be creating things that other countries want. Right. And until we get our people out of this survival stage of living paycheck to paycheck, one paycheck away from bankruptcy, one paycheck away from being homelessness, there's not an ability for Americans to become creative when they're, working 60, 80 hours a week to feed their children. How do you expect a man to develop his engineer mindset to be a creative engineer if he's just like living to survive?
Right. I agree. I feel like our government likes to, destroy instead of build.
Absolutely.
Right? You agree?
1,000%.
Well, just here domestically, we, as of today, Congress went home last night. SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, will end. And I know they're talking about pulling emergency funds, and that'll happen sometime next week. But SNAP, which WIC also falls under, or not under, but is associated with SNAP in terms of most families on one or are on the other, in that, who that feeds? Children, the vulnerable, the elderly, the vulnerable population. It feeds Americans in need. To take that away because our politicians want to play a game of chicken is disingenuous to our nation. It's a violation of our oath to the Constitution. And every American, whether you receive SNAP, WIC or not, should be furious, because it literally is a program that's designed to provide supplemental nutrition primarily to children, women, infants, and children.
Yeah, I've actually been getting more involved in this topic about SNAP benefits. I grew up very, very poor. My father was a disabled veteran, and the checks that he collected from the VA were not enough for us to survive. My mother worked between 10 and 12 hours a day, either peeling crawfish or skinning and salting alligator hides. And that was like sometimes 6-7 days a week. So there's this idea that people receive these benefits, but they don't work, or they have a job, but they don't make enough. And so recently I've been trying to have really educational conversations with other people to explain to them what this benefit is. And on rare occasions, it's fraud. For the most part, it's to supplement people who are working without livable wages. But I haven't been making progress, especially people on the right who have been programmed to believe that most of these benefits go to people who are not working and are able-bodied or are abusing the system. That is that's programming propaganda in order for, the right to support what the Republicans are doing in cutting these benefits. And one thing that I've learned actually yesterday is that I was wondering if the way that I'm speaking is going over their head. So I researched what the average comprehension grade level of Americans are, and it's 7th and 8th grade. Most Americans have a 7th and 8th grade reading level and comprehension level of concepts. That's why government agencies actually will produce information on 6th grade reading level for American citizens in order to ensure that they can understand what the information they're trying to communicate. And so that tells me that we have to break it down at a 6th grade level in order to explain to most Americans the reality that a person can work a full-time job at Walmart or Amazon or anywhere else and still need SNAP benefits. Why? Because they don't pay enough wages on purpose. The billionaires are profiting from everything. Why are you turning your eyes and blaming the person needing money for food and not the person with 3, 4, $1 million yachts, 2, 3 private jets, homes on every island? Why are you looking at the person that's literally like has just milk and eggs in their refrigerator?
Right.
That is the programming that we have to like break down in our own societies in order to change this.
I got a question for both of you. Especially since Aaron Bush now, do most people in the military now know that our media, our politicians, and even our wars are run by Israel?
I think more and more service members of our generation, of our generation coming through, realize that. I think that much of the generation that's the current service member generation, not as much, and the generation before us in the global war on terror, not as much. Our generation, we lived it. We felt it. We saw it and suffered and sacrificed for it to realize that, yeah, we were bamboozled. Iraq. I went from every tip to top, west to east in Iraq, found no weapons of mass destruction. All over Afghanistan, and look where that got us. The Taliban are stronger now than they ever were. They have a modern army now because of us, and equipment to go along with it. We don't even give that much to Israel. We gave the Taliban more just because we left it there. It's true. Look at, in the wars that we're fighting in the place we've been, it's what I often hear, because I've had this discussion with peers, officers, educated people, non-commissioned officers, people that have experienced this. Why? Why are we as a nation so beholden to Israel? And what I often hear back is, well, that we need them. Why? Why do we need them? Well, because of the intelligence they provide. Really? The intelligence they provided to go into Iraq?
Weapons of mass destruction?
The intelligence they provided to us to prevent 9/11?
Yeah.
The intelligence they had to prevent October 7th? What intelligence?
9/11.
After it happened? Great. Anybody can give you intel after something happens.
Right.
What are we missing? I don't know, but I've seen enough of it while in my time in service and having a top secret security clearance with secret compartmentalized information that where's the magic? I don't know. It's not there. Right. It's manipulation and it's propaganda. And people need, and what I tell my peers who have children amongst, ranging from our children's age or a little bit older, some in college. If we do not demand more from our government, accountability, responsibility, acting responsible in the world, the next war that comes will not be pretty. I'm talking thousands of Americans dead. If we go toe-to-toe in the Middle East with an entente, if you will, like in World War I, that consists of Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iran, throw Yemen in there, countries that have Generation 5 aircraft carriers and navies, air defense systems. We're not fighting the Taliban. We're not fighting ISIS. We will lose thousands of American sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines. And they'll come home in coffins, draped in flags. And all we're going to stand there with our yellow ribbons on our door. And what I will tell every American now, we can prevent that.
Yes.
And do you think that the elite and the rich are going to send their children to fight and die?
Never.
No.
Never.
So to my peers that have children that are military age, some of them have joined the military.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them their children have gone to West Point. Your children will fight that war. And they will die. For what?
Right.
For what? Is Israel going to fight in that war? No. I fought in wars around every corner of this world, and not one time did I see an Israeli standing shoulder to shoulder with me. Saw plenty of Afghans. Saw plenty of Saudis,
Right.
Jordanians, Turks, all over the world in the coalition, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. Never saw an Israeli. Interesting, right?
They use us as sheep. That's
Yes.
what we are to them.
We're
They're-
pawns.
Yeah.
And our country is better than that.
Much.
And it doesn't have to be paint. I'm telling you, the war that's coming will be something that we have not seen a death toll since Vietnam. And it will break us.
Yes.
America's not ready for it.
Mhm.
And that's the level of desperation that we're seeing in our leaders, you know, going after so many different countries, a tariff war with China and, you know, a security alliance breaking with Canada, talking about invading Greenland, you know, bombing in the Caribbean off of Venezuela. There's
Yeah.
so many different, the war with Russia to degrade and disrupt and degrade their capabilities. There's so much going on. That's when an empire is falling, that's when you see the worst of the empire.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing right
Desperate.
now.
Desperate.
The desperation.
Desperate.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. What do you feel about the whole Qatar bombing? What do you feel about that? I
Well,
this was completely uncalled for.
In Qatar, there is a U.S. military base that has been established. And a part of the requirements and agreement with Qatar is that there would be air defense assets inside of this base that would protect Doha from any incoming missiles, which they did when Iran bombed Qatar. These are some of the highest level technology air defense assets that are there. And when Israel bombed Qatar, they did not intercept these missiles. What that tells me is that the deal that was made in order for the U.S. to establish that base there is void. It was a complete betrayal by the United States of America to allow Israel and to deny that they didn't know or see these missiles. We both know that their radar system, the early detection radar system, knew that missile was coming from the moment it left the ground. There are sensors that will alert these, military people that a missile is in flight. There are so many lies that were told by the United States in order to cover up their support of Israel bombing Qatar. And then their commentary afterwards to say, well, Hamas was there. Well, Hamas was there. The United States requested Qatar to have Hamas there for mediation. And then to
Right.
use that as an excuse, it made our country look so bad. And that's why almost immediately we saw this peace plan come into fruition, and we saw Trump go to the United Nations and sit down with the Arab League and these Arab countries and work out a peace deal, because at this point he knew that the Arab League was not going to, for much longer, stand quiet and allow Israel to do what it was doing in that entire region.
Right.
And still to this point. But, I'm not saying the peace deal it was a good idea, because I feel like these Arab leaders got things that they wanted to further their own agenda on the top of the blood of Palestinians.
Right. Tony, how do you feel about the whole Qatar bombing?
Qatar really brought into question to me is, does the United States control Israel, or does Israel control the United States? And I think for decades, Israel's willingness to push red lines, break international norms, and just act has always been a benefit to the United States in the Middle East. They've been our bulldog on a chain, to where when Iran or others want to get out of line, we say, don't make me sick Israel on you. Well, now that dog has become unbridled and untrainable, and they've bit the hand that feeds them. And now nothing can control them. We sure can't. And what Qatar demonstrated to me is that Yeah, that dog is off the leash, and we're afraid of it now. We're afraid of what it will do to us. Qatar, what is Qatar? Qatar is a colonial outpost carved out of the leftovers of the Sykes-Picot in the Middle East, a kingdom, an emirate that is oil fields and a military base. And whose military base is that? Ours, the largest outside of the United States, sits there in Doha. All of the air defense systems that we control, that Qatar pays us to maintain for their protection, it's a deal. It's a negotiation. It's like a rental agreement. Qatar gives us deals on oil. Qatar allows us to have our military base there, very capable base.
Close to Iran.
Close to Iran.
Yep.
U.S. Central Command,
Yep.
forward headquarters is there in Doha. Very important place. And they let us stay there for protection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the mafia. Protection. And we violated that contract. We violated that agreement by allowing that to happen. And again, I can only imagine, as the president was told after the decision was made, who made the decision? Probably Pentagon Pete. And after those missiles were fired and those F-35s were launched and strikes were conducted inside of Qatar, in a civilian area, not against a military target, against the very people that are trying to negotiate a settlement in Gaza. I imagine the president was probably woken up in bed, probably not during sleep, probably when he woke up the next morning. Well, by that point, Netanyahu had already done his victory lap in the Knesset telling everybody, look what we did. And we did it alone, but America knew about it. And when they jostle the president out of bed and they say, hey, we did this, he says, oh, we didn't know. Baloney. You knew. Not only did you know, America, you let it happen. And the Qataris, they are not stupid. They see right through that. They saw through it instantly. And what happened within a week of the bombing in Qatar? Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed a security pact. I cannot emphasize how big of a deal that is for the world.
Yes.
Because what those Arab nations feared in that region were nukes. And who are the only ones that had them? Israel. How many? We don't know, because they're the only country that doesn't have to disclose that. Iran? Not yet. But who does have them? Pakistan. So now you bring a nuclear power into the equation. What now? Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, they're not buying it anymore. They're not buying the American protection. More and more they're speaking out. And if that coalition comes together to fight Israel, who's going to side with Israel? We will. And who will fight and die? Americans. That's what that moment meant to me. I just, like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Right.
You see it happen, you
Right.
see the ending, and it just flashes back. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
Mark my words.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, Benny.
I just got
Another question.
one last thing I wanted to ask you. I think I asked her was, have you received any threats or anything from Israel in all your work?
I mean, I can't say I know if it's quote unquote from Israel. I mean, I've received a letter from the Ministry of the Interior that I've been banned from Israel. I framed it. I'm happy. I wasn't going to go back anyway until
He
Palestine
actually
is
framed it.
until Palestine is free. I'll go back to Palestine. Death threats that have like a little, Star of David on it or a little Mossad emblem, signed Mossad. No.
Yeah. No.
But death threats, absolutely, from the Infidels Motorcycle Club. Notes of death threats left in my hotel rooms when I travel. Door always cracked open a little bit. Let me know somebody was there. Notes left in my truck when I park in parking garages. Every time I go to my vehicle, I remote start it, but I get behind like some kind of concrete barrier. So I don't know what's going to, like there's a pressure switch in the seat.
Like some mob movie.
But I just don't
Goodfellas
know.
Part 2.
I mean, I know what people are capable of. Absolutely. I know what they're capable of. But I have to ask myself, whether I knew that or not, would I still speak out? And I would.
Yeah.
And what I have said countless times, and that, part of me wishes I never answered the phone on May 13th when I got that number from 919, North Carolina area code, when UG Solutions called me. Wish I didn't answer the phone. Because if I didn't know about it, just wouldn't have thought about it. When I was asked, do you want to come do this? It weighed on me. I didn't want to, and I did. Now when I look where I'm at, if I didn't answer that phone, this wouldn't be my problem. But I did. And it's not something I can pretend I didn't see, or that I can pretend or justify isn't happening. It's happening. It's real. That scares me more than death.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's very
I don't totally agree. Like, knowing the truth that exists in our world and knowing what is happening to our children, because these children are all of our children,
Right.
all children are all of our responsibility,
Yes.
is way more terrifying than death. Because death means finally facing judgment and like moving, like going, like spending eternity one way or the other.
Yes.
Living in this world where the truth is that we as a species are so evil, have become so evil and doing such evil things is actually more difficult. It's like more difficult to stay alive in this world
Right.
than to die at this point.
Right. Well, I respect, love, and honor both of you for your bravery and what you just said about starting the car and hiding behind. I mean, listen, I get what you're saying. Me personally, I'd rather definitely die for something, for sure. I definitely don't want to go out. I think God had a plan for you, Tony, when you answered that phone, because he wanted to use your bravery to do what we're doing now. Right, Joe?
I agree. It's I think it's
same goes for you too, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's our destiny. I'm so thankful. It's not something I talk about a lot, but I'm so thankful that my mother had such a good relationship with God and knew who Jesus actually was,
Right.
and took the time as a child through my entire young adult life to make sure I went to church every Sunday. I knew who Jesus was. We talked about that. And unless it was like an emergency, up until I was 28 years old, I never missed church on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thank her for instilling that in me, because I think ultimately after all of this happened, those are the types of things I was reflecting back on when deciding what I was going to do and finding the courage to do what needed to be done. And just remembering that this life is a test by God and we are being tested. And this is, just one blink of the rest of our, souls. And we have to do what God calls us to do, and that's to protect his children.
Yes.
And so here we are.
100%. We are responsible for sure.
Yep.
I mean, if the equivalent of one Taylor Swift concert were to stand up in unison in one day, we could end this.
Yeah.
This isn't a God problem. This is a human problem.
Yep.
We haven't even... It would be embarrassing to go to God to ask him to intervene in this when we as humans on earth haven't even tried.
Right.
We're not doing enough. None of us are. I'm not doing enough. Collectively as a human race, we aren't doing enough.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to know of a genocide in the world and not necessarily see it. Like Josie said, we can watch it on our phone. You could literally be sitting on your couch, watching Netflix, ordering DoorDash, doing online work and making an income, watching a genocide on your phone, and do nothing about it.
It's almost as
One day,
paralyzed.
it'll be at your door.
Yeah.
That's what scares me.
That's the truth.
It's also pretty ridiculous that less than 1% of the population is bullying around the 99%. We don't
Absolutely.
need
Yeah.
America. We just need to get our shit together.
Exactly. We need to unite from the left
Yes.
and the right. And that's what I'm saying. The next part of this time that we're living right now is uniting together, regardless of our belief systems of other things. Let's unite together on basic, human, dignity, humanity principles. Let's just unite on that and see what we can accomplish from there.
Unity is victory.
To everyone out there, this is basically really all about unity. It's all about uniting, right? It doesn't matter who you are, black, white, Hispanic. It doesn't matter who you are, what religion, what race. Humanity is humanity. We should all stick together, wake up. just like Eric said, that 1% cannot control 99%. Is that right?
That's right.
Shouldn't. Doesn't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the Epstein files, let's just get it out there. Make our memes. We'll
Let's get it
admonish
over
people.
with.
Let's move on.
Let's just get it over with.
Over with.
Get it over with.
I don't know
I
what
think the
it
world
is.
is sick of the whole.
I don't know what it is.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, yeah, it's just that whole Epstein file things makes me. Sometimes I'm just like, maybe it's nothing. But then when it's like they ask the president like this week, like, so what about the Epstein files? He's like, the what files? And it's like, come on, like that's not even a good excuse.
Calling it a hoax and a conspiracy theory and misinformation.
He
Like,
ran
they're
on the
really-
platform of exposing it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Americans are smarter than that, and we'll wake up. Hope it's not too late.
Americans are smart, definitely. They just need to, wake up. That's it.
Doesn't
And
impact you at home
not
yet.
only wake up, but wake up and know what to do with it.
Right.
And we have a job as people who want to be leaders to give that guidance. We have to come together and talk about and say over and over, this is what you can do.
Right.
This is what you can do to change this. Whether it's us convincing our generation to register to vote. A lot of people don't trust the election process anymore, don't trust this democratic process anymore.
Yeah.
But unless there's a 1776, that's the tools that we have. So we need strong people to run for office, and we need people to support in campaigning for them, and we need people to register to vote. So many people our age are not voting, and the boomers are the ones that are voting, and we already know that they don't have nearly the level of access to the reality of the world that we're living in because they don't have the same technology access that we do, social media, etc. Right. They're still living in a world that we know is not reality. We know that as both Republicans, Democrats, Independents, that our, older parents, our grandparents are just totally disillusioned to the reality. So we need people to register to vote. We need people to run for office, and we need people to, get out there, put your voice out there. That's what we need.
Yeah. We definitely need people to run for office, I think,
Yes.
more than the voters, because we can have all the voters in the world, but if we have the wrong people, running for office, we're just going to go back in circles.
Yeah.
You agree, right?
1,000%.
Because that's what we're here. We're here because of our crooked politicians.
Yeah. And we need corporations and foreign governments out of our politics.
Yeah.
If you're a foreign government advocating for any other country, you need to register under the FARA Act. If you are a corporation, pharma, Johnson & Johnson lobbying our politicians to prevent maternity leave, for example, because that cuts into their formula profits. Those types of things have to be out of politics, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. We're tired of being sheep.
Yep.
We're tired of it.
Yep.
Wake up, America. We're tired.
Wake up. Don't be a sheep.
I need to stretch a little bit.
Me too.
Stretch a little bit, and then you want to do a few more questions, and that's it, or how are you?
Game for
Where
you.
are we?
It's about 9:51. It's 9:51. We're an hour and 31 minutes.
Oh,
We could
I think we're
things up in
wrapped.
5
Yeah, let's
minutes.
wrap. I think we're
Wrap it up.
good. We covered it all.
Every single one of my questions.
Yeah.
I think we have some hella good clips out of this.
Yeah. Hour and 30 minutes. Just stretch a little bit. My back is killing me. This chair.
Dude, my back was locking up at one point.
I don't know
was
what
like,
y'all's got a raw
How do you-
deal on the chairs. My chair is great.
Yeah.
I love my chair.
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, it's
You're
awesome.
good. Do you have anything you want to wrap up with?
You took some
Couple of
ibuprofen
questions
before
and
you
I
sat
got every
down, or
single
what?
one.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not
There's
bougie.
some
You got that 800 milligram
I'm a Green
ibuprofen?
Beret.
really good real.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I don't even sit in a chair.
Real good.
You think we should say something else to wrap it up, or
I
do you
think-
have any ideas, or
I think we got.
anything else that you two want to say before?
I think the biggest thing that I wanted to say was really like kind of calling out the ego of the left and the liberals, especially white liberals in this movement, who are like really preventing unity from happening of the American people. And I think I did that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
1,000,000%. That was an excellent point.
'Cause-
Because they're doing gatekeeping,
Gatekeeping.
on frivolous stuff. That's only politics in America, and stuff that really Muslims wouldn't agree with that anyway. They're
Mm-hmm.
Muslims. I mean, they have
They're conservatives. Well, they're secular.
culturally,
Yep.
because you can have a left-wing government but a right-wing culture. And
Exactly.
It's whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tony, you got anything you want to say before we wrap things up?
I often reflect on my time in service. It strikes me as odd that Americans, and especially when service members, talk down or racially and ethnically categorize, quote unquote, Muslims, when in the wars that we have fought in Afghanistan, the commandos that I trained with that fought alongside of us in battle were Muslims. The forces that I fought with in Iraq, the Iraqi security forces, the Iraqi SWAT, Iraqi special operations, they were Muslim. The Filipino forces in southern Mindanao fighting the Islamic Liberation Front, who were less extremists, but Muslim.
Right.
In Syria, the Arab coalition that we first rose to fight along the Marja line, Mara line in Syria, were Muslim. In every war that I have fought in this quarter century, there has often been a Muslim by my side, saving my life, or me saving theirs, or fighting alongside me against the things we said were wrong. Why does our country favor the side of the Israelis over that of Arab nations and Muslims? And I don't think it necessarily has to be a pick of one or the other, but we're deciding to make that binary choice. It's this or this. And that's a facade.
Created by Israel.
Created by Israel to say it's
kill
this
America.
or this.
Yeah.
Muslims will kill you.
Exactly.
Muslims hate you.
Yeah.
Down with America.
Yeah, they brainwash you.
I've
They
heard
brainwash you.
I've heard
That's what
people
they
in
do.
the Israeli Knesset also say down with America.
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard rabbis in synagogues in the United States say that in order for Israel to achieve its goal, Israel or America must die. That the cost of Israel becoming the mighty nation will be America.
Mhm.
They don't hide it. So I have reflected on this long and hard, and I cannot understand it in any other way that it's racism and bigotry. And it's promulgated primarily by those that haven't sacrificed for this country. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio,
Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller,
Yeah.
Bannon,
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
People that haven't sacrificed for this country, that think it's so easy to divide people amongst and say, oh, it's this and it's that. And it's like, you don't really know what you're talking about.
Not at all.
And I think that, more Americans should listen to, diplomats in the Department of State, real diplomats, service members that have served, that in speaking out have nothing to gain. We're not paid spokesmen in any shape, form, or fashion at all. In fact, for most of the times, we sacrifice and pay out of our own pocket to come and see and talk to people because we care about it. And American values, you look at someone and you're like, oh, they're paid a lot of money to say this, but we believe them, as opposed to this person that has everything to lose in speaking out, but we don't like what they have to say. The truth doesn't always come across as easy to digest. It wasn't for me. Being in Gaza and seeing what I saw, tried to make every cognitive dissident excuse in my head that it's not this, surely it's not this.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was undeniable to the point that it was, it broke me. It broke me to realize that it's a genocide and we're doing it. If this was a political cartoon from World War II, you'd have Nazis marching Jews into the gas chambers and Uncle Sam in his big top hat turning the knob. That's what we're doing in Gaza.
Right.
And it's disgusting. And it's not America. And we need to, like, cold water in the face. I don't know, something.
Yeah.
We got to wake up.
Yeah. We definitely have to wake up. You want to say anything else before we wrap up?
No, that was a perfect wrap up right there. I think.
That was
Yeah.
a perfect wrap up.
I'm good.
Joe, you want to?
My back is on fire.
You're
I
good?
got a 17-year infantry back.
bad posture.
Oh, I have bad
You always
posture.
like to pick at each
because
other.
It's your posture's fault.
Yeah, not because I ruck march 20 miles all the time with
Yeah.
an 80-pound rucksack.
Yeah.
Couldn't be that.
Well, let's wrap it up.
You're right, because I never wore a rucksack.
I'm a
it up.
female. We're
Me and you.
not supposed to.
What do you want to say?
You bear children.
Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate you. We definitely want to change everyone's mind, show them the truth. And Eric, what do you want to say to the world?
That was a great interview. Thank you so
Yes,
much for coming on
definitely a
by.
great
Thank you both. This is a great trip.
Great trip.
Wonderful
Yeah.
place. Wonderful studio.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for watching.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.